And welcome everybody who's watching this recording from home. We're going to do a relative ordering game. Let me give those of you at home time to consider the game. So here's the game. Go ahead and pause your recording. Take 3 minutes to solve this game. And then unpause and we'll discuss. Okay, so those of you at home have had time to pause the recording. Those of you in the room, you've already tried this game. Let's talk about how to diagram this game to kind of overcome the challenges we discussed on the previous slide. All right, this is what we call a relative ordering game. We're asked to put the elements in order, and all of the constraints, as Julian mentioned, are relative constraints. None of these say things like openings is shown fourth, painless is shown third. They don't give us any fixed positions. This is a relative ordering game. So let's talk about how to deal with this. We're going to take the first constraint, and I'm just going to set an arbitrary convention here. I'm going to say that left is earlier and right is later. And this convention is going to help us draw out the first constraint. Openings is shown at some time after night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put O later than N, and I'm going to draw a straight line between them. Now, from here until eternity, or at least until you take the LSAT, this straight line connecting two letters will always mean the same thing. N comes sometime before O, but we're unsure of how far before O. In other words, it could be right before O, or it could be 5 spaces before O. We don't know. This line you want to think of as kind of a flexible rubber band. Okay? So give a smile, you guys, if that makes sense, if this notation makes sense. Okay, perfect. And always feel free to type into Noah if you have any questions on this. Let me ask you guys a question. The key to diagramming is to attempt to connect as many of the rules as you can as you work. Okay? So they give us these rules in a certain order. We don't have to consider them in the order that they're given. In fact, we want to consider them in the order that's going to be most beneficial to us. We want to connect these rules to the diagram that we already have existing on our page. So go ahead and grab your pointer tool. Okay, it looks like the laser or the magic wand button over here to the left. And go ahead and point to the rule that you think we should tackle next. Go ahead and put your pointer by the rule that we should tackle next. Only seeing 3 pointers here, guys. Go ahead and grab your pointer, the magic wand button. Yeah, I agree with you guys. Notice that this rule involves an N. We already have an N in our picture. All right, the second rule, neither the second rule nor the third rule deals with an N or an O. So we can't hang the second or third rule off of our existing picture. We want to move to the next rule that we can. So this is the next rule we want to diagram. N is shown before R. Okay? I'm going to give you 3 options here. I'm going to diagram this. Actually, I'm going to give you 4 options. I'm going to diagram this in 4 different ways. And I'm going to then ask you to use your pointer again. Which one of these 4 methods of diagramming this last constraint is correct? Go ahead and move your pointer to one of these 4 red R's. Which one would you use to diagram this 4th constraint? Go ahead and just choose one. Oh, I love it, you guys. You didn't even fall for the trap. There are 2 correct answers here. The top and the bottom, those are both correct. Laurel, you want to jump on. Why is it that I can't do this R here or this R in the back? Go ahead and jump on the mic. Why are those incorrect?
Can you repeat that, Dan?
Yeah, the R right here between the N and the O, and the R out here behind the O. Why are those incorrect representations of this last rule? And Laurel, we're having a little trouble with your mic. Bethel, you want to jump on? Do you have a response for that?
We don't know that R comes before O or after O.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's beautiful. This implies R before O. This rule doesn't give us that information. This R out here implies R after O. This rule doesn't give us that information. All we know from that rule is that R comes after N. Now, it doesn't matter whether I put the R above or below the picture. Vertical orientation is irrelevant. Above or below is okay, as long as it's to the left of the N. Okay? So I'm going to choose to put it below. Okay? And let me diagram that. So we've got the R below the N. The key thing to remember here is always move to the next constraint that involves an element that you've already used. Okay, so that's the takeaway. You're going to use that at this point to work through the rest of this diagram on your own. So let me give you guys 1 minute to work through the remainder of the sketch. Okay, so let's walk through this, and you can see if your work matches up. I'm going to move to the next constraint that involves a letter that I've already got on the picture. That's the R. Painless is shown at some time after mince, but before reaction. So painless is going to be before reaction and after mince. Okay, so painless before reaction, after mince. Then we're going to move to the next constraint. Kimba is shown at some time before sanctify and after painless. But before we get to this one, I want to ask you guys a couple of questions, all right? The first one is, based on the diagram we have, what do we know about the order of M and R? What do we know about the order of M and R? Go ahead and type that into the chat window. You can type it into the whole class. What do we know about the order of M and R based on this picture? Exactly right. M comes before R, right? We can see that clearly in the picture. M before P, M before R. Let me ask you a second question. What do we know about the order of N and P? And to make it a little bit easier, let me just kind of cover this up. What do we know about the order of N and P? Oh, Pam and Bethel, that is fantastic. We do not know which one comes first, N or P. And understanding the difference between what we know for certain, the relationship between M and R, for example, and what we don't know, N versus P, is going to be critical. And Noah's going to talk more about that in 1 second. We'll diagram the last rule here, which is Kimba is shown at some time before sanctify, but after painless. We've got the last rule diagrammed in. Give a smile if this is the diagram that you had in the end. Bethel's got it. Greer's got it. All right, fantastic. So now that we know how to diagram this game, this relative ordering game, Noah's going to take us through some direction on how to actually read this thing, which is going to be crucial to getting some questions correct. So I'll turn it over to Noah. For those of you at home, you're going to want to watch the next recording, which is on reading the diagram.